This is a clip from the Red Cow Arcade podcast.
I have one bunghole to give, and I give it to you.
I have not seen the movie. The Beavis and Butthead.
Do the Universe on Paramount Plus. It might be my favorite movie of the year.
Really? It's that intense?
I thought it was hysterical. It's I mean, Beavis and Butthead were always pretty funny as and I think it was lost on me the extent to which they were kind of a parody of themselves. It was always like the exaggeration of stupidity, which was kind of a comment on where entertainment and where people were kind of headed. It sort of was like a precursor to Idiocracy in that sense.
Yeah. It's like this was where the youthful energy was in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Idiocracy was like, this is where like civilization is going.
Like when in Idiocracy, when they're watching shows like, ow, my balls. And stuff like that. You know, like that is Beavis and Butthead. And so it makes you wonder, like, when he was writing that movie, did he think like, oh, I've contributed in some way to the dumbing? And yet I think like, but the show was already a comment on that. It wasn't just that. It wasn't in much the same way. Like, I feel like Jackass is or South Park. They all kind of have this thing of like, there's like a stupidity level and then there's an intelligence level on top of it. And yeah, I mean, I would say the things that get away with being just pure stupidity are more along the lines of Jersey Shore, the Kardashians, you know, like pure stupidity.
Yeah, all that reality TV low tier stuff.
Yeah, like really low IQ, like the people who watch it don't know why they watch it, you know. But so I always thought it was good, but the thing that I would say that Beavis and Butthead was unable to do was satire. Like, I don't really think they were able to really meaningfully comment on current events or things that were in the news or anything like that.
Yeah, they would have like characters that fit like an archetype that they kind of made fun of, like the hippie teacher and the like Texas neighbor or whatever and stuff like that.
I think they really matched the energy of like first season, second season South Park. And then South Park kind of like transcended and was able to do a lot more with itself over time. And I feel like this movie, even though it very much follows the same plot beats as the first movie, where they're under the misgiving that somebody wants to have sex with them. It follows an entire train of logic. So that, for those who don't know, it's they ruined the high school science fair, and as a consequence, they were made to join space camp, and then they were brought on a shuttle mission, and they accidentally, caused it to be destroyed, and a lot of people died. It's 1998, and then they're sent away from the ship, and they end up getting sucked into a black hole, which they think is a giant butthole, and they're spit out in 2022. Where they don't know anything. So smartphone usage, obviously, and all the rest is all brand new to them. And yeah, there's something like, obviously we've been living in very strange cultural and political times for the past 6, 7, 8 years. And like, it's like hard pressed to explain to the average person what the fuck is going on, let alone these two who already knew nothing. So it's, I think it's a really good premise. And the jokes are just really strong. It kind of, there's been a lot of revival comedy duo, like the new Bill and Ted, the new Jay and Silent Bob. And I think most of those projects are like, oh, it's good to see them again. And they got older and, but when it's an animation, for one thing, Mike Judge doesn't sound the characters don't sound any different. There's no like James Earl Jones, like old guy sound to their voices.
Well, Mike Judge is already a high IQ butthead, so, as you said.
I listened to him he did like an hour and a half on Joe Rogan, and yeah, the whole time it just kind of sounds like yeah, I don't know. There's a new movie out with like Mr. Bean chasing around a bee or something.
He's like, yeah, he's just such a normal guy.
Yeah,
which it's just who happens to have like a comedic genius and make great comedic films. And
he had a great idea for, I guess it didn't make it into Idiocracy, but he had a great idea for that movie where I was like, that is genius. Like, that is such a smart, funny joke. Like, it deserves to be in something, which was that all of the clocks would be flashing 12. Including like a giant Big Ben would just be flashing 12. It's so smart.
It reminds me of my childhood.
Yeah.
It's like, that my parents just like couldn't give a fuck about the clocks.
He was saying that, he's like, yeah, you'd always go over to somebody's house and their clocks would always be flashing 12 or something. Yeah, no, he sounds great. I was watching an interview with him and he was like, well, I don't do these voices in my free time. And he's like, but so I hadn't done them in years basically. And he said he had to do it for like Coachella or something. And when he did it, he was like, he heard it back and he was like, oh, I kind of still sound like Beavis and Butthead. And he said that they had been, that like Viacom Paramount had been talking to him for a long time about doing a sequel. And then one of his friends had come up with the concept and he said, oh, actually that could probably work. And then they did it. The animation looks really good. Yeah, there's this element of like, will both of them have, in their heads, do they think that both of them will be having sex with her at the same time? Do they take turns? Like, what do they think is going to happen? There's a really nice moment where, for the first time I think like in any Beavis and Butthead content, they kind of have like a third act where the two of them don't understand one another. Like the two of them go their separate ways and are kind of pissed at each other. Of course,
that's interesting.
In the movie, it's because this woman that they assume likes them. They steal somebody's phone and it's Siri. They're talking to Siri and they think that it's her the whole time. So they're like, every time they talk to Siri, they're fighting over this one fake woman. And Beavis in particular is really in love with her. He's like really smitten with her. He's like, yeah. No, I just really like to hear the sound of your voice. No, it just feels good to have somebody listen to me. And Butthead's always kicking my ass for no reason. But so they go their separate ways and kind of when they come back together, Butthead's like, Beavis, you're not gonna score and I'm not gonna score, we're gonna score.
It's so comforting that like really their pathos, their id has not changed, it's like they're
all the 90s terminology, the getting kicked in the nads. And, but yeah, Beavis starts a prison riot with Cornholio. He takes a bunch of meth and he becomes Cornholio. And, kids have been doing this shit, for a really long time. And but somehow watching it this time, this stuff, having your hands up in the air like this made me laugh so much.
I am the great Cornholio.
Yeah,
I have no bunghole.
He becomes like a Cuban revolutionary or something. Just muttering. I love like the little like muttered utterances, like do not disrespect my bunghole. Have you seen my bunghole? And the prisoners are like, yeah, we do want teepee for our bungholes. And the warden's like, what started as a simple request for toilet paper has gotten out of control. I think my favorite joke in the whole thing was they're visited by smart Beavis and smart Butthead, like from an alternate universe. They're kind of these alien versions of them. And yeah, they're like a little more high IQ. And they're like, have you ever seen the cartoon Spider-Man movie? And they're like, no. They're like, oh, that would have made it a lot easier to explain. And they're like, there are infinite iterations of us in the cosmos. And they're like, well, have any of them ever scored? And they're like, no, none of them have ever scored. And Butthead goes, cool. That means we're going to be the first ones. It's like, they're invincible,
optimistic in their stupidity.
You can't hurt them.
It's great. I love it. I love it.
It's so funny. And it was just done so well. It is, unlike these kind of reunion movies where you're just sort of happy that they did it because it's cool to see everybody. I think they're like thriving. I think like they've never been better.
Just like Mike Judge, man.
Yeah. I mean, that guy, between Silicon Valley, Office Space, and really Office Space is the precursor to to The Office, right? I mean,
yeah,
I think it's better than the U.S. Office for my money. And King of the Hill, obviously, Beavis and Butthead, and Idiocracy. Like that's like a murderer's row of content.
Yeah, it's he almost like can't lose.
Yeah,
like you think about like Matt Groening, it's like he's like despicable compared to.
Yeah, he's a total fucking loser. He's like, I drew bunnies in a comic book one time, and that was it. Yeah. So I highly recommend it. And I also hear that in August, they're doing like a 24 episode season where they're older and they're going to react to TikToks and they're going to react to YouTube videos and that sort of thing. And that's just fine with me.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
I watched it twice in a row. I watched it on the elliptical and then I immediately was like, Nina, you got to watch this with me. And it was just so nice to sit on the couch with my wife and laugh, like just laugh our asses off the entire, like every single thing that happened in it made us laugh. It's starting with the drawings themselves. Like the drawings can't lose.
Yeah, they're very funny drawings. Yeah, even like I was looking at clips of the new movie just on, it's being shared on Twitter and stuff, and I'm like, they're immediately appealing and funny.
Yeah, it's great. Did you watch it when you were a child?
Yes, absolutely. My parents did not want, like it was like banned in our house, but we still watched it. I don't know. Yeah,
it was like close to porn, basically. Like it was like banned material. So I didn't have cable, but I would go over to my friend Will's house, and he and his brother were like really into it. They were like quoting it all the time, doing the voices all the time, and I felt like pretty out of the loop on it. But also, like South Park, a few years later, where suddenly you started hearing, "Oh my God, they killed Kenny!" like in the zeitgeist all over the place. Like they start like Beavis and Butthead-esque things started showing up on Full House and Boy Meets World. And it was like for a banned thing, it was like all over the place.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it definitely showed up on other things. I remember there was like there's some sketch show where there was like a Mrs. Beavis and Mrs. Butthead. Do you remember that?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
There was a sitcom, Step by Step, with Patrick Duffy and Suzanne Summers, where they just literally there were two characters who were Beavis and Butthead. I don't know how they struck there were two guys who did the same shtick with the same hair. I don't think they actually called them by those names, but they just
that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I did see that show.
It was everywhere. And I remember feeling very like scandalized by I remember staying up till 1 a.m. and it was on TV, and like at my house we had network TV, and like the national anthem plays and you go the fuck to bed. And this was like Beavis and Butthead were still rocking at 2 a.m. I was like, this is an exciting way to live. And his parents were divorced, so like there was just the dad, and the dad couldn't give a damn, what we were all watching at 2 a.m. It was very strange. It was very like disorienting for me.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, my sister was totally into MTV. So we watched everything on MTV. And but like, it was really weird because my parents would like say we couldn't watch it, but they didn't police it at all. So we would just go into the basement and watch it. And if like they came down the stairs, we just changed the channel, and it was like totally cool.
Yeah, I didn't have that with that, but nor did I have South Park, but I had a friend who he like, there was during this first season of South Park, they made all the holiday specials, and then they were just running marathons of it all the time because it was so successful. It was the only thing the channel had. And so I remember he just like taped like a packed VHS full of episodes. And he was like, he knew I was a big Simpsons fan. He was like, if you think the Simpsons are funny, you've got to see South Park. Like you got to see Mr. Hanky. And in retrospect, I mean, I think South Park is genius and I love it and I'll always love it. But the first couple of seasons I think are not like, they're good, but they're not Simpsons good in my opinion.
No.
But to a 10-year-old, I'm sure Mr. Hanky really hit.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely groundbreaking in how like edgy and stuff it was, and
that was pretty. That was scandalous to have that in the house too. Like, I remember one time in particular, I started getting kind of like emboldened because I don't know why I was there. I was like watching the show in the living room, which was just such a stupid move. And there was I was watching the Kathy Lee Gifford episode of South Park when Chef for some reason like bangs Kathy Lee Gifford at the end of the show, and she was like, "Chef, let's go again." And he was like, "Damn, woman, I just gave you sweet loving 5 minutes ago. You're trying to kill me." And my dad overheard that whole exchange, and he was like, "You're gonna turn this off right now." He was like so pissed that Chef didn't want to keep having sex with Kathy.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.